According to my clock, it's now 7 o'clock, and we do have a quorum of our commissioners present. So I am going to open the Dartmouth Conservation Commission meeting for June 25, 2024. This meeting was duly posted, and the website for the Conservation Commission was also posted in the town hall. We're conducting this meeting this evening remotely, and that is due to Governor's signature on a bill on March 29, 2023, which further extended the hybrid remote meeting options for municipalities until March 31, 2025. In this particular hearing, there's a raise your hand feature at the bottom. When you put the cursor down to the bottom, you'll see the raise your hand option. And also, if that fails, wave your hand. Other than that, I respectfully request folks mute themselves when you're not speaking. That way we don't get the ambient noise that sometimes interferes with the presentation and makes it difficult to hear. That being said, we'll move on now to our administrative items. And the first, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 28, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The next item of business is the approval of the field trip reports of June 11, 2024. May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The third administrative item is to receive the minutes of the June 11, 2024 meeting. I have a motion to that effect, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. That vote passes unanimously. That motion, I should say, passes unanimously. We're moving now to our field trip reports. And the first is a continued request for certificate of compliance on a DEP file 15-2129. That's RCC 2419. It's from Mario Denise to construct a parking lot within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 84, lot 8-17. It's number 5 Castaldi Drive. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
For the commission's benefit, if you recall 2 weeks ago, we were to hear this case, and staff had noticed that there was no book and page recording on the application for the COC. Not to go through the whole discussion, we provided the applicant with a true and attested copy. They did record that appropriately at the Registry of Deeds, and we did get the receipt of that. So staff is recommending to the members to issue a complete certificate of compliance on this filing.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions of Mr. Garrett? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2129.
So moved.
We have a second motion on the floor. We have a roll call vote. Kyle.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second field trip report is a request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file 15-2416. That's RCC 24-21. It's from Timothy Major for permission to add an attached breezeway and a garage to an existing house within bordering land subject to flooding and within the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank on land described as map 179, lot 9. It's otherwise known as 740 Reed Road. Mark, on this request for certificate of compliance, does staff have a recommendation?
Yes, my recommendation is we need to continue this. I had informed, and Mr. Giosa is here. I don't know if he's within earshot, but this is a former client of his who needed to file for certificate of compliance, which they did. The tax collector has stopped this, taken it off the portal. I checked as early as this afternoon. It was still listed as stopped. We cannot proceed until they clear it. So given that fact, I don't know what the status of these tax payments are. This will also encumber public hearing number 6 this evening. I don't know if Steve wants to comment. I know I made him aware of this at least twice over the past several weeks, but we cannot proceed because we don't have authorization from the tax collector.
Well, that makes it easy for us in terms of our decision, but the next public hearing is July 9th. I would assume we should continue it until July 9th and not a later date, but clearly if they don't have the tax situation squared away, we're not going to be able to vote on it that evening.
Right.
So I will entertain a motion to continue this request for certificate of compliance on DEP file 15-2416 until our next public hearing on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. We'll now have a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our third field trip report is a continued request for determination of applicability. And that's RDA 24-6 from Manal Mugawar, and I'm probably butchering the name and I apologize, for permission to construct various livestock enclosures and to compost manure within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 169, lot 180. It's at 43 Maycomber Avenue. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Well, this one is a little complicated. If you recall the last meeting, I had indicated that given what we had been submitted, that I was prepared to issue a positive determination on this filing. I had spoken with the applicant's agent and they went back and spoke to their client, and the client asked for a continuance in lieu of issuing a positive determination at that time. And they would provide us a revised plan. And I said, that's fine. Revised plans are due on Thursday. On the Thursday preceding the public hearing, public meetings, which was last Thursday at 3 p.m. They failed to provide the revisions by that date. I had written the draft recommendation for a positive 4 or 5, 4 and 5 determination. And this morning when I walked into my office, there was an email with a revised plan. I forwarded that plan to the commissioners. I did not expect you to review it. I did not have time to review it. So we have two options here. The first one being, we just follow through and issue a positive determination moving forward. The second option is to continue one more time to give staff and yourselves a chance to review the plan so that we can make a less reactionary, more informative decision on this case. Again, the next hearing would be Tuesday, July 9th.
You know, from my perspective, Mark, and I appreciate the explanation, and I understand that the plan has come in quite a bit later than it would normally be required to be voted on this evening, but I think it would be appropriate that we continue this and take a look at this revised plan. It may address some of the concerns that were previously articulated, obviously. Without studying it, we don't know. So I don't want to make a decision. Personally, I don't want to make a decision without reviewing that plan. But if any commissioner has any questions or comments, I'd be more than happy for that to be addressed. I don't see any, so I will entertain a motion to continue this request until, and this is a request for determination of applicability on RDA 24-6 until our Tuesday, July 9, 2024 public hearing at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to the fourth field trip report, and it is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 24-15, from Jamie Bissonette for the removal and replacement of stairs from the front and rear of the building, which includes a portion of the existing sidewalk and the relocation of a water meter. It's within land subject to coastal storm flowage that falls within the velocity zones 16 and 17. It's on land described as map 117, lot 3. It's at 292 Elm Street. Mark, what is staff's recommendation on this request?
Yes, 292 Elm Street is 2 doors down from the corner of Bridge and Elm to the south. This is a largely developed parcel. There are several buildings on it. These, the proposals as part of this RDA are associated with the front building or building right along the street. It is the farthest out from the water. Therefore, it's at the farthest edge within the property of the land subject coastal storm flowage. The work is very minimal. It will have no effect on the resource area. However, it is in the resource area, even though it's developed. Staff is recommending a -2 determination on this.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have a question of Mark? I don't see any, so I'll entertain a motion for the issuance of a -2 determination on the request for determination of applicability, RDA 24-15.
so moved,
So moved.
A
Second.
A seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. The final field trip report, number 5, is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 24-14, from Caitlin Litwinitz to install a 20-foot by 44-foot in-ground pool within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 72, lots 45-27, and it's 5 Sunflower Drive. Mark, again, staff's recommendation on this request.
Yes, this is an in-ground pool in the lawn area that falls in the buffer zone. It's about as far away from the edge of the wetland as you possibly get in the backyard. So staff is recommending the issuance of a -3 determination to include our standard erosion control condition, segregating the work area from the downgrading wetland.
Okay, does anyone have, any commissioner have any questions of Mark on that? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for the issuance of a -3 determination with the standard erosion control condition regarding segregation of the work.
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to our public hearings. And the first is a,
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in real quickly, point of order. I did get a request from the applicant's agent for public hearing number 4, Eduardo Macaroco. He is out of town, trying to get back into town. He would like number 4 to be pushed to the end of the public hearings if we could tonight. He said he will be here, but he needs a little extra grace time.
I think that's appropriate. We have a full agenda, so I don't have a problem with that. I'll entertain a motion to place the public hearing number 4 on our agenda to the last item, which would be then 6.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, we have a roll call vote on the seconded motion. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. So now we are going to the first public hearing. And it's a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2737, NOI 24-19, on the notice of intent for ecological restoration. It's from Thomas Hardman to eradicate existing Phragmites and any other invasive species within a bordering vegetated wetland, the 100-foot buffer zone in lands subject to coastal storm flowage. The appropriate regulations are 310 CMR, 10.02, 10.04, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. It's on land described as map 113, lot 30 and 30-1. It's 5 and 15 High Street. I entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
A second,
Second.
I'll have a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard, are you recusing yourself?
I am recusing myself as it pertains to me.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I see Tom Hardman is here. So Tom, you're here on behalf of the applicant. You certainly have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Applicants, plural.
Applicants, plural. Yes.
Can everyone see my shared screen?
No, I can't.
Really? Okay. That's a problem. Try it again. Okay. If I share screen now.
Still a no-go.
Okay, let me try it again. And just the goodness. All right, can you see my screen?
No, we can't. It hasn't changed, Tom.
I'm sorry. All right, bear with me a minute. Let me stop the video. and share the screen again.
Not
Can
doing,
anyone see that now?
If I can request, DCTV, is Mr. Hardman activated to share the screen?
He does have the permissions to do it. So as long as you click on shared screen at the bottom of your screen, assuming you're on a PC, you
Yeah.
choose what screen you want and you click share and it should just share your screen.
All right, let's try it again. Can you see me?
I can see you.
Yes.
Okay, just bear with me a minute. Let me get on that screen and hit share screen again. Do that.
Is the screen you want to share clicked?
Yeah,
Highlighted?
so aggravating. Bear with me a minute, please.
Sure.
Here's the Zoom meeting. Okay. And all right, you can see me, yes? So I go to the screen that I want to share and hit share screen. Okay. But when I do that, I can't share screen.
I'm gonna send you a video just to see the exact steps because we can't see what necessarily I can't troubleshoot from my end on your end. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna send you a video.
Can you see that screen now?
No.
So
What the?
Do you see any prompts or anything when you try to share screen, like an error code or anything like that?
Nothing. I hit, I'm going to do it again. Share screen.
So when you right now, what are you looking at? Do you see?
I'm looking at select the window or application that you want to share.
Okay, so you need to select what you want to share and then
Yeah.
click share, which is going to be
I
the
gotta
bottom
click
right
share
of that
again.
window. There it
It's
is.
working.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
All right, there we go. I can see
My
it now.
apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Whatever.
Okay, so this is a joint application between Jonathan Rounds and Annette Mallon. It affects two parcels and there are two versions to each parcel. I'll explain why it's a joint application shortly. Everyone can see this. Can you see my cursor okay?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so this is the Rounds property here, attached. And this is the Mallon property here. This project is to restore a a wetland to its hopefully prior condition. Both properties are greatly affected and have tremendous amounts of invasive species on both properties. This application is proposing to remove those species and to replant some areas where those species are taken out. The reason it's a joint application is because to do this on just one property is a useless exercise and a waste of money, because seeds from the property that isn't done will then propagate on the property that has been done. So it would be pretty futile effort and waste of time and money. So that's the reason for the joint application, because it affects both parcels. In addition to that, the Mallon property currently has a permit in this area here, as I'm outlining, to do vista pruning to a height of 8 feet. Additionally, the Mallon property would like to extend to the property line in this hatched area here as part of that. It's been very successful. It's come out very, very well. It's done on an annual basis, and they would like to just extend it into this portion here to his property line, because this line really isn't visible on the ground. Someone could get lost out there and start cutting on the wrong property. So that's the vista pruning on the Mallon property. Additionally, on the Rounds property, they would also like to do vista pruning additionally in that same area. While that work is being done, a protocol has been provided to the commission by a certified arborist, which will speak to how the work will be done and carried out. And that's pretty much it. Again, these properties are really inundated with Phragmites. It's quite a case of Phragmites out there. In addition to that, there's porcelain berry, there is Russian olive trees, a couple of them, and other various invasive species that have taken root in the wetland that's there. So that's the proposal, to remove the species and to continue vista pruning on that portion of the Mallon property, and to begin vista pruning on the Rounds property. The vista pruning will enhance both the view of both parcels, because the Mallon property looks across the Rounds property, and the Rounds property looks across the Mallon property, which has had the benefit of the vista pruning that's been done in this area already. That's pretty much the presentation, I believe. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Mark, has staff the opportunity to review this application? And if so, I entertain the comments.
Yeah, before I make some comments, I need some clarification here. I'm reading one thing, I'm hearing another thing. According to Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom,
Yep,
you stated that there would be invasive species removal on both the Mallon and the Rounds property, which I understood from our previous discussions. Is that true?
that's correct.
Okay. Well, you've submitted us a plan which indicates, and I'm reading the notes right off the plan, on the Rounds property, it says invasive species removal area and vista pruning to 8 feet. I get that.
Okay,
When I go to the Mallon property, I see additional vista pruning in that middle area with the heavier hatching. And
right,
I see permitted vista pruning to 8 feet under file number 15, 17, 18. There is no mention on the record plan of invasive species removal on the Mallon property. Then when I go to the protocol that was submitted, and I'm reading the first paragraph, The following are the recommendations for approval of reclamation to the area in front of the house owned by John and Eve Rounds, 15 High Street, Dartmouth, Mass, that has been taken over by invasive species. There is no reference in that report of the Mallon property being used for invasive species or
Okay.
being sought for invasive species removal. Now, I was, you know, I understand why both properties should do it, but the presentation that I've received indicates that only vista pruning is taking place on the Mallon property, and the invasives are being removed from the other.
Right, so that's just an omission on our part, and I apologize for that. I need to just change that note, Mark, so that it addresses as we've spoken and understood. And I can also get the protocol changed as well. I don't
Okay.
know, I read through that protocol. Obviously, I missed that as well. It's been a very complex project because it involves two parcels, two owners, and two different things being done on two different parcels. And so that's an omission on our part. But I can get you a revised plan tomorrow and a revised protocol tomorrow that addresses exactly as we've spoken.
Well, it's, this becomes a question of what the commission wants to do without a plan of record that depicts what is the intention. I don't know that they can approve. Having said that, I want to make everybody, and I'm not going to go through the litany here unless the commission wants me to. I was prepared based on what I had read and what was proposed to recommend an issuance of an order of conditions, specifically modified, a standard order of conditions, specifically modified to the vista pruning and to the invasive species removal as per the plan of record, which is the plan in front of us. So it's not that I'm not in favor of the program. I think it's a decent program. But I think we need proper plans of reference and the narrative to be appropriate, because we're going to write an order of conditions based on a plan and a narrative of record. So my recommendation at this point, if we are in agreement that there is some inconsistency here and it's got to be straightened out, my recommendation is to continue, since we do not have the plan of record that we would move forward with.
But Mark, speaking on my own behalf, not on the entire commission's behalf, I think that's correct, and I also think it's consistent. But if there's any issues that you see, we'd like to hear what they are, so that Mr. Hardman, when he revises the plan, could make any other additions or modifications that might make it more pleasing to you or to the staff as being compliant with the performance standards applicable.
Well, I can read the draft conditions, I'll call them, and I sent them to the commission earlier today.
Yeah, I don't think you need to read those. I think we not only did we get them, but since we're not going to vote tonight,
Okay, that's fine.
it'll
But
just
what
take.
I'm saying is this, you're asking me what my issues are. I really don't have any, but I do want to make record in the conditions that I sent you, special condition 43, I actually modified it a little bit after some thought. And that condition reads, invasives that are removed shall be replaced with a specified wetland seed mix. They're suggesting a meadow seed mix. This is a wetland resource. It's got to be a wetland seed mix. And then I added inclusive of wetland fern species and sowed at the recommended seed density. So the only change I would make to the narrative from the standpoint of plant specification is that the meadow seed mix should be changed to a wetland seed mix, and that seed mix should include wetland fern species.
Thank you, Mark. That's exactly what I was looking for. So Tom, that would have to be a modification on the plan as well.
Or on the protocol, right?
On the
As I read these, I reread these notes, Mark. Okay, there is the heavy hatch that goes from, say, northeast to southeast. does say additional vista pruning to 8 feet and proposed invasive vegetation removal, Mallon property.
But the Mallon property is not cited in the narrative. I mean, there are inconsistencies here.
Oh, okay.
The
Fair
plan
enough.
says one thing, the narrative says another thing, and my understanding was a combination of both.
Correct.
Okay, I
And
think
your
we have-
understanding is correct. We just need to, I need to get that
consistent.
straightened
It's
out.
it's not whether you can or you can't, it's more, let's get it all together.
What to
So
prove.
we're-
I got you. I got you. Okay. So I will take care of that in short order.
Okay.
Now, any commissioners have any questions on the presentation so far? I don't see anybody. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to be heard, understand we're likely to vote to continue this public hearing until our next public hearing, at which point you'll again have the opportunity to be heard. But if you want to speak this evening, now would be a chance. I don't see anybody. So I think it's appropriate at this time to entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until our next public hearing, which will be Tuesday, July 9, 2024 at 7 p.m. I have a motion to that effect, please.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time.
Welcome, Tom.
Our second public hearing. It's a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2732, NOI 2433, from Stephen D. Francisco to demolish an existing dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with associated grading, utilities, and driveway, within bordering land subject to flooding and the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank to Lake Nokichoke. The appropriate regulations here are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, and 10.57, as well as Section 2 of the Town of Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 179, lot 179-6. It's otherwise known as 718 Reed Road. May I entertain a motion to waive the reading?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Seconded motion on the floor, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes,
Liz.
I need to recuse myself.
Okay, Liz has recused herself. Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Yeah, it's Steve DeFrancesco, the applicant. I was hoping my engineer, Joe Webby, would be online tonight, but I guess he can't make it, so I'll have to field some questions.
Okay, would you want to tell us what your proposal is? If-
Yes, our proposal is, we did an extensive cleanup in that lot, and we still have under order the condemned building, the long brown one, that the Board of Health is asking us to demolish. I'm looking for permission to do that, and we're looking for permission for a approval of a single-family home with a 3-car garage under to be built at the specified location.
Thank you. Mark, I would entertain staff comments on this particular application.
Yes, this is the old Musical Beach site. You'll recall we issued an RDA back in the early spring for them to get out there and clean up what was a real mess. It was a very big Board of Health issue in terms of debris and dilapidated structures and the like. They did a very good job. They were very neat and clean about it, and they protected the down gradient Lake Nokichoke. And they're trying to market this property. They can't market it as is, so they're requesting the improvements by dilapidating, taking down the dilapidated structure and building a single-family home on the parcel. And they have presented a plan, which I did send to you folks. I know Mr. DeFrancesco probably doesn't have the ability to share it, but I did send you the plan, and this was a third revision because the major issue that we had, there was some line work that had to be taken care of in the first revision, but moreover, they did not account for compensatory flood storage because this is within the 100-year floodplain of Lake Nokichoke. Went back and forth with the engineer, and I basically said, yeah, really have two options. The first option is to excavate some area to handle the 604 square feet of additional floodwater displacement, or raise the structure to an elevation and put flood vents into the foundation so that water could flow through the crawl space, which is the method that they've chosen. They revised the plan to include that as part of their notations. And I am prepared to issue an order of, recommend the issuance of a standard order of conditions as per their revised plan, which the revised plan is dated June 18th, 2024. It's with our standard conditions with one additional condition. I would like, and this is something that we've worked on with DPW, we'd like erosion control in addition to what they propose on the lake side of the development, but also erosion control along Reed Road so that no construction sedimentation discharges off-site onto the street, which is DPW's issue. Our issue becomes typically the streets are pitched in such a way that drainage and sedimentation ends up in catch basins and either into receiving waters, aka Lake Nokichoke, or down gradient wetlands, in which that becomes a fill. So we'd like the construction completely isolated from the lake and from the street side. And that would be my only addition.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any question of either the applicant or Mr. Garrett? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that wants to speak on this application? Victoria's got her hand raised. I see one hand raised. Victoria?
I don't see a hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Well, okay, maybe it's.
Victoria is muted. So.
Okay, I see Victoria is muted, but okay, so what I'll entertain is a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion, we'll do a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Kim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions on the revised plan dated June 18, 2024, with the additional condition that erosion control will extend such that no sediment will discharge from the construction site onto Reed Road and further into down gradient wetlands or storm drains.
So moved.
So moved.
Second on that? Second on the motion. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
my vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Di Francisco. You did a
Thank you,
very
ladies
good
and
job.
gentlemen. Thank you much. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
So our third public hearing is the continued public hearing DEP file 15-2736. It's the notice of intent or NOI 24-25 from Belmar. And actually on some of my notes, it says Belmore. Do we know what is it Belmar or Belmore?
Belmar.
Belmar Cove LLC, care of Mario Ferreira to repair and improve a pier and to conduct seawall maintenance on land subject to coastal storm flowage, on land under the ocean, and on a coastal bank and on land containing shellfish. The applicable regulations here are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.30, and 10.34, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 124, lot 4. It's otherwise known as 43 Mosher Street. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
With a second on the motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and my vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Who is here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, it's Dave DeVignan from Schneider DeVignan Leone. I'm here representing Belmar Cove LLC, property owner of 43 Mosher Street. May I have permission to screen share?
Absolutely.
Said host disable. Oh, okay.
DCTV, can you activate Mr. DeVignan for screen sharing?
I have. You should be able to.
Oh, I have two devices. You probably screen shared the wrong one.
I see. There is another one.
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem.
Oh, we are in
Yeah,
luck.
it's working. It's starting. There you go. Okay.
Okay, so the notice of intent filed on behalf of the applicant owner is covering pretty much a four-prong approach, which I'll take one at a time. I'll start with I'll zoom into the plan view to help understand what we have going on. Prong number one is a repair of storm damage to the pier itself, caused by the multiple winter storm events last December, and actually I think it goes back to the December before that. So the site has a pretty much like a solid filled pier. It's basically a jetty with a concrete walkway on the top. As you get to the easterly end of it, there's a very large area of concrete cap, and then extending over the limits of the jetty, which have a slope from that cap down to grade. There's an elevated pile supported timber type pier on the east and the north side. It's been there for decades. The applicant historically has removed some of the decking when he can prior to winter events, but the pier it's on its last leg. It's taken a beating over the last two winter storms. We have a cross section AA here, which I will zoom into so you can understand a little bit of what it looks like. So when you get to the very end of the pier, essentially you got a concrete cap. We have this solid filled structure, which has a boulder jetty on outside face to it. The cap actually cantilevers over the boulders, and then there's some embedded I-beams that come out and are supported by timber piers pilings on the outside face. So this is section AA, which would be looking north. The proposal, prong number one is to repair the pier within the same footprint that it exists today. So this is a proposed cross-section. Where this cross-section, these hatch area here is where we're gonna saw cut the cement back so that we could put a timber header there, bolted to the remaining concrete pad, and then put Greenheart stringers out to new pilings, which would be installed in the same location as the existing piles. There are some piles which are missing. There were a total of 11 piles that support the pier that we're looking to replace. If I go back to the pier, the plan view, I will zoom in a little bit better. So the dark circles represent piling locations that are there now. They'll be pulled and replaced. 2 here. There's 3 at the northeast corner, 1 about a third of the way down, and then heading easterly, there are 2 heading westerly, 2 in this location. The lighter circles represent pilings that have been torn out. There are 2 at the northwest corner and 1 along the southeast corner along the easterly face. So 11 piles total. As you can see, these spot grades, they represent depths below mean low water. So the barge would come in, be resting for the easterly face in approximately at least 6.7 feet of water. At the northeast corner, that's a low tide event. High tide would be closer to 10 feet of water. As you come along the northerly side, the last piling, the northwest corner of the pile, the barge would be sitting at least in 5 feet of water. So water depths are not an issue with the replacement of the piles for the pier. All of the activity for that pier replacement would be done using a crane and the barge. Lastly, for the pier repair work, there is a boulder here at the southwest corner of the pier that has been dislodged and is actually now a little bit over the property line. We want to take that and just move it back into where it belongs. We provided photographs of what this looks like. Apologies, I'm moving along here too fast for my computer. So going back to a prong 1 is a repair of the L-shaped pile supported pier and east and northerly end, and a replacement or a movement of that boulder at the southwesterly corner. Prong number 2, the second part of the project, the applicant would like to implement some improvements. He has told me that docking a boat in this location is quite rough. Lots of wind most days. So he'd like to install a boat lift system, which would be located on the north side of the pier, be protected from the solid filled pier. It would be supported by 4 pilings. All the pilings proposed are Greenheart per your bylaws. So the boat lift system essentially is a 4-pile vertical system, and then a frame set on 2 of the pilings with some cables that lift the boat out of the water. At that point, he can dock his boat and pull it out above the water level and not worry about it. He'd also like to install a 4x10 timber float for docking alongside that north side when the winds aren't kicking. We're proposing 2 Greenheart piles to support that float in place. That would also be on the north side. That float would rest in greater than 6 feet of water at low tide, which would be closer to 10 feet at high tide. Part 3 of the equation would be maintenance along the vertical seawall, which consists of just filling in the cracks and voids with cement. We're proposing to lay down tarp along the beach for the manual work to be done. Any concrete would be mixed up on the lawn area, which is up top here at elevation 12. The beach grade is down at elevation 5 to 6. And the last part of the project is improvement of the access. Currently, the lawn is up at 12.5. they have to walk down the set of stairs, get down to elevation 6.4, and then walk up somewhat of a concrete ramp to get up onto the pier at elevation 8. It's sort of a wonky way to get onto the pier, utilize it. So they're looking to install a gangway that would bridge the lawn area to the concrete walkway of the pier. We have a cross-sectional view so that you can understand what that looks like. Here you have your existing vertical concrete and stone wall. There's a pretty significant concrete pad behind that wall that will allow us to bolt a hinge system and to put the gangway onto a new concrete pad at the end of the beginning of the pier. You can see that we're providing 6 foot of separation from grade, about 5 feet seaward of the wall for public access. And the concept with this this gangway would be to have it prefabricated so that it can be manually installed in pieces and then disassembled prior to a storm event. The same is to be said for the new decking. We're calling for a fiberglass decking to allow water to flow through, and that decking would be removable during the off season or ahead of a storm event. Our client has been here for a while. He understands how dynamic this area is, and he's looking to make it last longer this time. This view right here, section BB, shows you the boat lift system, which would be just abutting the north side of the reconstructed pier. So we do have a DEP file number. We did receive a memorandum from Division Marine Fisheries. I didn't see anything in there that actually was applicable to the project. In most of the letter to me, it appears to me they didn't really read the plan deeply. Be happy to talk about it if Mark wants to, or if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Dave. Mark, with that, I would certainly entertain staff's comments on this application.
Yeah, this is kind of a unique structure. We don't see many of them. There are some in town, but we don't see many of them. It's a solid fill pier. You can't build this anymore. The regs would not allow it. What I see is a retrofit of an existing solid fill structure, which I think is probably appropriate. I think that to the best of their ability, the minor additions, which are piles being placed in existing pile holes, and the float and the boat lift are located on the north face of, or the northeast face of the solid fill pier. And that's probably the least exposed spot on the pier. Now, it's not completely protected because you do have a northeast fetch coming across Clark's Cove, but it's certainly not as significant as the 14-mile fetch over to Woods Hole in the Elizabeth Islands that you would have on the southern face. If they were to take that and rotate all of that 180 degrees, it would be disastrous. The pier has been damaged in the past. I think a lot of that has to do with age and materials just decaying. I didn't see at my site visit, I did not see the kind of tear away storm damage that you would typically see on a very exposed situation. So I think that the siting of the end of pier repairs, modifications, if you will, are reasonable. Aside from the pilings, there's no displacement of significant bottom. Therefore, there's no significant effect on the land subject to land containing shellfish, excuse me. So I spoke with the harbor master, and he did not indicate the need for, a contribution to the shell purchasing budget. The DMF made several comments, and I think I agree with David. I think they did a desktop and they really didn't look at it. They made several comments about eelgrass and the area being mapped as eelgrass. And this particular area is not mapped. There is a mapped eelgrass bed to the south, 75 to 100 feet to the south on the GIS map. When we went out and did our site visit, I saw no evidence of eelgrass in the project area or near the project area. And having conducted several eelgrass surveys in the past, I think I know what I was looking for, and I didn't see it. Second comment they made that was somewhat significant is that Clark's Cove is mapped for the potential presence of horseshoe crabs and winter flounder spawning, which I think may be a bit more significant than the eelgrass. And I think what it does is it requires setting a construction window, which, because of the species in question, might be a little bit of an odd construction window. Having said that, staff is ready to recommend a standard order of conditions on this with some modified conditions. If I could in fact read them to the commission, I did send them to you earlier. All the conditions up to special condition 40 are intact. The modifications take place after that. Special condition 41 reads, due to the potential presence of horseshoe crab and winter flounder, I won't read the Latin for you, in Clark's Cove, the approved work window shall extend from June 1st through December 31st. So it's pretty much a summer-fall situation. The horseshoe crab tends to be an early spring dweller in the egg layer, and the winter flounder tend to be winter, more wintry, late fall wintry spawners. So that's why it is more of a warm season construction window. The second special condition, number 42, an anchored floating boom and siltation curtain shall be deployed and maintained throughout the construction period to completely isolate the project work from the open bay. Special condition number 43, all landside construction work shall be segregated from the downgradient jurisdictional wetland resources with properly installed and maintained staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence along the lawn edge and extending 100 feet north of the proposed dock. Special condition 44, barge grounding shall be avoided throughout the construction period. Special condition 45, since the project work is within the existing pier footprint, no one-time payment to the town's dedicated Shellfish Seed gift account will be required in this case. I went over all of this with the harbor master. The harbor master his staff has been just decimated with illness and people leaving and getting hurt. He did not have time to write us a letter, but he is absolutely comfortable with this. I had a discussion with him yesterday morning on this, and he said that everything that I was proposing was fine and we should move ahead. And then special condition 46 is just our file number posting. I just renumbered it and it's the last condition. So that is my recommendation to the commission.
Thank you, Mark. Commissioners, any commissioner have a question of either the applicant or Mr. Garrett? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see anybody. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion on the floor, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Yes.
I vote as yes, that motion passes unanimously.
Mr.
Mark,
Chairman, Just I forgot to mention one thing. These conditions and modifications to conditions are as per the plan dated May 14th, 2024. I apologize.
That's okay. That was the question. So you,
Mr.
question.
Chairman,
yes,
I know the public, it's just a quick question. I was writing notes. I want to make sure I wrote it right, in case my client calls me tomorrow. The work allowed, Mark, did you say from June 1st through December 31st?
Yeah, the
Is
work
the-
window shall extend from June 1st through December 31st.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
David, if you want, I can send you a copy of these, email them to you tomorrow.
Well, that'd be great. Thank you. Takes
Okay,
care of that.
just the verbiage.
All right, thank you so much.
the public hearing has been closed. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion for the issuance of a standard order of conditions with our standard conditions through number 40, and then with special conditions 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, and 46, as read by Mr. Garrett this evening. And that's all on the plan dated May 14, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
As we stated at the outset, the item that's listed as number 4 has been moved to number 6. So we're moving on to a public hearing and I'm just, with, excuse me, DEP file number 15-2740, NOI 24-26 from David Vermette to construct, excuse me, a single-family dwelling with associated grading and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and a coastal bank and within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regulations here are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.30, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaws. The land is described as map 23, lot 48-1. It's on Horseneck Road. It says 0, but on Horseneck Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second motion. We'll have a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Before we have the presentation, I want to make mention of the fact that we have not received the NHESP, NES rather, A findings yet. And until we do, we can't close this public hearing, but we certainly can start it. So with that being said, who's here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Steve Giosa with SciTech Engineering and Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant this evening. If I may, I can share my screen and we can walk through the presentation this evening. Can everybody see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a 5-acre parcel of land. We are located on the east side of Horseneck Road. Horseneck Road here off to the left side of the drawing. Slocum's River located on the easterly border of the site, and single-family residential dwelling located to the south and undeveloped land to the north. This property has actually been partially reviewed by the commission a number of years ago. Bob and Jane Sylvia filed a request for determination for the site in order to get a wetland delineation approved for the site. And after several meetings on that application, the wetland delineation that is depicted on this plan was in fact approved by the commission. So we have vegetated wetland here, running along the north side of the proposed development. And we have a wetland delineation running along the east side of the proposed development. And this is a marsh area here, adjacent to the river. After that initial application, we have completed on-the-ground topographic survey of the site. And the primary purpose of that topography was to develop the site plan, but also to establish the 100-year flood zone, which is a coastal flood zone in this area, elevation 12. So you'll see there is, based on the topographic features, elevation 12 running along this edge of the property, basically on the northeast side of the site. And then on the northwest side, the 12 elevation extends in this location here. That topographic survey also is used as a basis for determining the coastal bank associated with this area. And you'll notice that in some areas, the coastal bank is coincidental with the flood zone line. And then where the topographic features warrant, the coastal bank climbs the slope and then returns down and joins in with the flood zone line. And similarly, in this area, it follows the flood zone line based on the topographic features and terminates approximately here. The yellow reflects the 100-foot buffer zone to the vegetated delineation. And the subject improvements to the site are located within the 2 acres of upland area that exist on this site. There's a little over 90,000 square feet of upland area on the property. And we have positioned a single-family dwelling proposed for the site here. We have done percolation testing with the Board of Health and determined suitable soils for a subsurface sewage disposal system to be located on the property. The sewage disposal system would meet all of Title V and Dartmouth Board of Health regulations. So we are not looking for any waivers or variances. The building itself and its position on the property meets all applicable zoning. So there are no waivers or variances requested for the house position. And similarly, with the driveway and the other impervious surfaces being created, the project is well below the established maximum amount of alteration for impervious surface under the zoning bylaw. So we have a driveway originating on Horseneck Road. We've kept it in this location where there is a previous alteration of the site in this front corner of the property. It also worked well with the topography to bring the driveway in to access a garage located on the north side of the building. To minimize some of the grading, what we have done is proposed a retaining wall system and some steps so that we are keeping the grading limits associated with this dwelling confined to the area near the house, maximizing the separation to the wetlands and the coastal bank, as well as staying out of the 100-year flood zone with all of the construction, with the exception of the entrance drive here, which is existing, the roadway, Horseneck Road, is below elevation 12. So we have to match the roadway and then bring our driveway in. But with the exception of this small area here, we are essentially a buffer zone project. Again, you can see the driveway is within a portion of the buffer zone, but we have established a limit of work with erosion control barriers running along the outer perimeter of all the work coming around the site. And at its closest point, which is approximately here, we are about 40 feet from the vegetated wetland in this location. You can see here, we're essentially 100 feet or more away from the marsh area to the north and east of the site. And we are connecting to municipal water. There is a water main located on the west side of Horseneck Road. There's a hydrant directly across the street, and we are proposing a water main tap to bring domestic water supply into the property. So again, it's we believe a buffer zone project. We are located, as the chairman indicated earlier, within a designated natural heritage area. Understanding that we were in that area, we actually filed with Natural Heritage back in January of this year, a preliminary plan for this site. It's a little bit different than what you see this evening. We had an initial review with Natural Heritage and received some comments and requests for supplemental information, probably back in February, late February, early March. We provided that supplemental information to Natural Heritage, and then the person who had been assigned to review this project subsequently left the agency. So we were asked to resubmit and essentially start the review process with a new agent at Natural Heritage, which we did. We had a request for some additional supplemental information and then a request for a conference call. We did undertake that conference call with Natural Heritage. They requested a couple of additional changes to the plan. Those changes are reflected on this drawing, and essentially it resulted in a slight downscaling of the limit of work and tightening of the grading and limits of alteration or proposed alteration on the site to get below the limits that Natural Heritage has conveyed to us as being important for us to get a project that would be more suitable for this particular setting. So we are waiting for a final determination from them. What they indicated to me when we did make those changes was that although we did address their concerns, they would not provide any written comments until a formal notice of intent was filed with the commission and with DEP, and that a file number was issued. That DEP file number has just recently been issued, and we would anticipate receiving the recommendation by Natural Heritage, I'm guessing within the next week or so. And as the chairman indicated, we would be looking for a continuance this evening, since you are not able to close the hearing without that documentation being in hand by the commission. I've read through a number of the comments that have been submitted by a number of the abutters, and I see a number of them here this evening. There seems to be some misunderstanding about the project. Number one, we are not requesting variances or waivers from regulations. So I think that that's one of the bigger items that jumped out at me. One of the other items was the scope or scale of the house. If you look at this house in terms of size and the length of the driveway proposed here, and you compare it with the adjacent property to the south, the property across the river, several properties heading along the river, all within similar environmental areas, you'll find that this project actually has less alteration, smaller footprint, less driveway, less impervious surface in total, and in some cases by a fairly significant amount. So we think it's in scale compatible with the environment in this area. We've, again, took the steps ahead of time to meet with Natural Heritage. We knew that that would be an important first step for this project. And we'd be looking to move this project along once we do get through the Natural Heritage review. But we understand we'll need to wait for that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have at this time, and I'll turn it back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Giosa. Mark, I know staff has had the opportunity to review this application, but I would at this point be very interested in staff's comments and observations on this particular proposal.
Sure. Mr. Giosa referenced an RDA, which was done, filed, and determined before I really was involved with this site. And as I understood it, that RDA, or that determination, in fact, verified the vegetated wetland lines, which you see. Steve, could you scale the plan down a little bit so we
Sure.
can? Thank you. So the wetland lines that you see that Steve has indicated with edge of bordering vegetated wetlands were in fact verified in that RDA. That RDA was filed in 2019 with an expiration date of 2022. However, due to COVID, the governor had issued a tolling period on all state permits, which included wetlands permits and determinations issued by the local Conservation Commission. And the total extension of that determination is extended out to August 10th of 2024, of which I had made Mr. Giosa aware of a few months back, couple months back, whatever. Just so he knew, you know, where we were based on the DEP calculator that I have. So this is still, that line is still valid. There was some discrepancy and into what the extent of that was. My predecessor, Michael Riley, wrote a draft letter, although I don't know whatever happened to it. I only saw the draft. And I presented the draft to Mr. Giosa and to the commission, indicating that there was still some question as to the coastal bank. Floodplain is pretty much obvious once you know what the topography of the site is, and also riverfront area. Mr. Giosa this evening explained his determination of the floodplain based on their topographic survey and the extent of coastal bank, which follows the MADEP policy based on slope, floodplain, and the like. And I think that they've addressed the coastal bank accurately and in accordance with the MADEP policy on coastal bank determinations in tidal regimes. The one thing that I don't know is how the riverfront area was determined. I see a line that says edge of Slocum's River. I see a line, the 200-foot setback off of the Slocum River line. I'm not sure that edge of Slocum River reflects bank full as defined by DEP. Which is the point in which riverfront areas begin. That's their down gradient edge, and they extend up. Typically, they reflect the annual high water mark, and then you measure from there. I would request, since we need to continue this, if Mr. Giosa could provide me with a methodology as to how they determined. I'm not saying that line is right or wrong, but I'd like to know the methodology that they used and the criteria they used to set that line where it is. I don't think that the riverfront area would extend up to where the proposed development is, but I'd like to know that that line is accurate and as to why it's accurate. So that is a piece of information I think we need. As we have said, we do not have a natural heritage finding, so we cannot close the hearing. There were 23 comment letters submitted. There was 2 letters submitted by the same person. One of the comment letters from DNRT was about species concern, and they're working through with natural heritage to determine what that issue is. The remaining comments were comments not in favor of the project for various reasons. One of which was species, scaling of the project. As Mr. Giosa indicated, there were numerous references to variances. This is not a variance case. It doesn't rise to the level of a regulatory variance case under the wetlands law. There was concern about water quality and river sensitivities, which those concerns have been around forever. DEP is in the habit of making new considerations and classifications, but they really don't represent anything more than what we've been dealing with in the environment for 20 years. I will let the commenters speak to their comments. But basically, you know, from our perspective, my simple response to all is, if this project meets the regulatory requirements, meets the performance standards of the resource areas in question, and more specifically, the buffer zone under the state and the state act and the local bylaw, there really is no reason not to approve the project. Having said that, you know, we need to see a little bit more about the riverfront area. We need to hear from Natural Heritage to make a determination as to whether this project does meet the performance standards, but the commission needs to, you know, recognize that that's what they're judging the project against, and it's not necessarily style points or things of that nature. I don't say that to minimize the concerns. I understand everybody has concerns about this. I understand that there's a general concern over urbanization of the town of Dartmouth. Dartmouth is becoming urbanized. That's what it is. And the problem is bigger than just wetlands. And I always go back to some information that I was taught years ago and read. Everybody knows the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. We do not, we're afforded the privilege of not incriminating ourselves. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is grants, and I'm going to use the term, I'm paraphrasing here. It grants the right of any property owner, real or intellectual, to get reasonable economic compensation from said property. I think that the question here is, you have to underscore the word reasonable. Reasonable can have many meanings to many different people. And we just need to be careful about how we review this as to its legality and its performance under the specific laws that we're dealing with. I am recommending continuing because we don't have the natural heritage response. And also I'd like a better description of the methodology used to determine riverfront area from the applicant.
Thank you, Mark. Before I open it up for the commissioners to ask questions, I have a comment and a request. So the request first, the 23 comment letters that were submitted all should be made part of the record so that they're there. They won't be read individually this evening. They're part of the record and will be such. I will now make my comment, and that is, since I've been on this commission, we've been, I think, scrupulous in our treatment of every applicant in a fair manner, giving consideration to the proposal, the data, if you will, the plans, knowing the regulations, the applicable regulations, and the rules, and not necessarily who the applicant is, but rather that, so that people who come before our commission, to use the vernacular, get a fair shake, okay? And we treat everybody the same. I call it due process, okay? So, Mark, I think you hit the nail on the head. If an application comes before us, regardless of what that application is, and that application or that proposal meets the performance standards under the regulations, I think we'd be derelict in our duty to deny. Because if you meet the performance standards, you meet them. If you don't, you don't. And we're not going to grant waivers. We haven't done that. Okay, we've followed the rules pretty strictly, and that's how we do it. So with that, I want to make that clear. We do view every application the same way, with care and consideration. And as I said, looking at the regulations, which are our touchstone in bylaw, that's how we view it. So with that, I will ask any commissioner that has a question or comment, make their presence known. I don't see any, so at this juncture, I'll open it up to anyone in the audience who wants to be heard on this application. Raise your hand would be fine, or wave your hand if you're, well, there's somebody waving. Well, I don't know who you are. It says Kathy Clear, and you're certainly not Kathy, but
No, this is Gregory Clear, her husband. We just have a shared computer.
okay. You've got
We are a
your-
butter.
Just your
Oh,
address. Yeah.
I'll tell you, 100 Horseneck Road, a direct butter to the south.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. I want to emphasize and remind you that this application before you is to squeeze, to use the developer's own term as published in Facebook, a McMansion onto this lot. Which faces directly onto the Slocum River. Approximately 50% of the planned development is within the 100-foot buffer zone, including significant grading and retaining walls, which will destroy any vestige of the existing environment. The Slocum River has already been identified by the Mass DEP as a potential nitrogen-sensitive area. To Mr. Gios's point, that didn't exist 20 years ago when the other properties were built, and will be subject to any new Title V regulations currently under review, which could eventually have some significant impact on town finances. I acknowledge that the planned septic system itself meets all regulations, but the overall project does not. In addition, this is not a case of hardship where the land has been held in family for many years to build a dream home. This is an experienced developer looking to push the limits of his property to maximize his profit. The community does not have any obligation to provide a good return on his investment. Many of us, like you, have children and grandchildren. Someday they're going to ask us about our stewardship of the land and water. I'm sure you will want to be able to tell them that you had the discretion as commissioners to do something about overdevelopment, and that you exercised it in a way that would make them proud of you. Therefore, I urge you to use your authority to exercise your community and environmental responsibility and return this application to development for a significantly smaller project, in spite of what tradition may have allowed, because this is a sensitive piece of land and we wish to respect the entire 100-foot buffer zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to be heard on this?
Yes.
Mr. Brenner, you've got your hand waving.
Yes, I do.
Your name, address, and then you have the floor.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joel Brenner. I live at 802 Rockadundy Road in map 23, lot 39, which is almost directly across the river from lot 48-1. I thank the commission for the opportunity to be heard. I want to say at the outset that I am not raising, I don't know who may have, but I am certainly not raising a question about the integrity or the fairness of either staff or the commission. Quite the contrary. There's no dispute that a single-family house may be constructed on this lot. The issue is whether this project is now scoped above a salt marsh is reasonable under the performance standard you must apply with respect to the buffer zone. It is that standard and not the takings clause of the Fifth Amendment that guides you. This is certainly not a constitutional taking case. I therefore turn to 310 CMR, section 10-55, subsection 3, regarding bordering vegetated wetlands. The presumption in that subsection must be well known to you all, so I will only emphasize one point about it. It requires you to presume that the project is significant in terms of the interests specified in subsection 1. Those interests include, and I emphasize this, wildlife habitat protection. This presumption is not favorable to this application. It's rebuttable, but any attempt to rebut it must address this issue as well as groundwater supply, flood control, etc. We don't think the applicant has done or can do that, which brings me to the performance standards in subsection 4, because Mr. Chairman, I agree with you that, and with staff, who've been, I must say, courteous to us throughout this matter, brings me to those performance standards in subsection 4 because they indeed are dispositive. They do not change the conditions you must consider. Subpart 7 of subsection 4 is clear on that. And it requires you to consider, quote, the extent to which adverse impacts can be avoided. Your standard, therefore, is not reasonable in some abstract sense, but rather reasonable in light of all the interests the statute and regulations are designed to protect, specifically including wildlife habitat protection and the extent to which adverse impact on the habitat can be avoided by reducing the project's scope. I'm not making this up. That is in the regulation that you have guided us to, correctly so. Subsection 4C deals specifically with buffer zones. It says you may issue an order of conditions that permits some loss of buffer zone, but not if it's, quote, I again quote the regulation, not if it's reasonable to scale down, redesign, or otherwise change the proposed work to avoid threats to the wetland and the buffer that protects the wetland. That is why in this case, scaling down would be reasonable. Now, the language I just quoted from subsection 4C has got to mean something. You can't read it out of the performance standards. It's not as if this standard is a ruler that will measure and give you a yes or no answer. You have considerable discretion here, quite a lot of discretion here. 6,000 square feet is a big house. Now, I want to address the point that Mr. Joseph raised, that there are other houses that may be as large in the area. But those houses aren't invading the buffer zone or the wetlands. The question then is what's reasonable on this site given this buffer zone, because this applicant proposes a massive invasion of the buffer zone, not a slight invasion. He has to invade that buffer zone significantly in several different directions. This is a fragile environment. And although I respect the point that Mr. Joseph's made, I think it's inapplicable here. You don't just compare that house to other houses in the area. You have to look at the house with respect to the lot it is on, and the regulations that you have pointed us to discuss reasonable scaling down or redesigning to avoid these issues. Now, you can issue an order of conditions that may deal adequately with issues such as flood control, storm damage prevention, and that sort of thing. But it's not realistic to think that a replacement area required by any order of conditions you could issue is going to result in the replication or restoration of the lost buffer, consistent with the interests sought to be protected as required by the section you've put our noses into. In sum, you have a lot of discretion here, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and you should exercise it in a manner that protects all the interests the law and regulations protect, specifically including habitat. Allowing the proposed invasion of the buffer zone would turn these authorities inside out. And I mean the authorities in the performance standard, not simply in a hortatory preamble or something, in the performance standard, which I've quoted to you at some length. this project will damage habitat in ways that can't be remediated. And that is why I urge you to scale it back. He can build a house here, quite a large house, but not this one this way. We also request that you require detailed calculations, perhaps by Mr. Giosa, I believe he's a licensed professional engineer, regarding the coastal bank and the calculations that were made to determine its stability. I'm not arguing with Mr. Giosa's placement of that bank. I have no basis for doing that. But in order to deal with this conscientiously, I think you need to see the calculations and to continue the matter as you evidently plan to do so they can be received and examined. Thank you for hearing me. I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome. Does anyone else want to be heard on this matter who hasn't been heard already? Yes, Mr. Wildman. Nick, go right ahead.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick Wildman, Executive Director of the Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust. We're direct abutter to our Parsons Reserve on the other side of Horseneck Road. Want to voice my support for Mark's assertion that the commission needs to have accurate accounting for the wetland resource areas that are delineated on the plan. And we would request that any comments received from Natural Heritage or from DEP in their review be made public and shared. Because as stated in our comment letter, DNRT's position relies on the science and our observations, Natural Heritage staff's observations of threatened species in this area that are known to use the habitats on both sides of the road. And following Mr. Brenner's comment, will be impacted by the proposed extent of impacts within the buffer zone and within the entirety of that habitat. So those are our DNRT's concerns. Thank you very much.
Mark, is there a way for, if we get this, it can be shared with on the website?
Say what?
Can that Natural Heritage letter that we're waiting for, can that be put on our website by a link of some sort?
That you received, including all of the comment letters received by the neighbors, have been posted on the portal in the file record. Anybody who has access to the portal can see that. We also have hard copies in the file. So that I can certainly make that available to anybody who wants the Natural Heritage letter. We will have copies of it in the office when we get it. And if I have people's emails, I can certainly send them out, send those comments out.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. I know that they're on the portal, but I know you have to sign up for the portal and get a password and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking it might be but your solution I think works. I think it's fair. Mr. Wildman's comment was correct. He'd like to see it. And I think from what I've heard, so with some of the abutters. So as long as we can get it to him, that would be fine. Anyone else that wants to be heard? And by the way, you're not precluded from being heard at what's likely to be the continued public hearing, because we're not going to close this public hearing. So, oh, I'm sorry. I see Mr. Sturgis has his hand raised. You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Sturgis. You're muted. Should be on the bottom.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be brief. My name is Peter Sturgis. I live at 1 Old Jetty Road, which is downstream a bit from the site off of Horseneck Road. And I've already submitted a letter, which is a part of the record, as you noted earlier. And I just wanted to really second the comments that have been made tonight, particularly those from Joel Brenner and Greg Clear. I think they both make important points. One, really about the future of the Slocum River and how we need to consider it for our children and grandchildren and beyond that. And the other made by Joel Brenner, going into considerable detail about your role, the commission's role and the staff's role in looking at this. And like Mr. Brenner, I don't in any way suggest that you haven't in the past and you aren't going to consider this as you have others fairly, regardless of who the application is or what a building may look like. So I appreciate your serious consideration. I appreciate the comments that have been made and just wanted to second those comments. So thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgis. And I appreciate you taking the time this evening to attend, along with everyone else. Is there anyone else who wants to be heard? Okay, I don't see anyone else with a hand raised. So we are not going to be able to close the public hearing at this point. And we're if I heard correctly, they're expecting that letter from Natural Heritage within the next 10 days or so. I think it'd be appropriate to entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until our next public hearing on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a point. We have the July 4th weekend coming up. And my guess is that I don't have the same faith in Natural Heritage that Steve seems to have. I think this letter is going to come after the July 9th hearing. We can certainly continue to the 9th, hoping that that letter comes, but if there's consideration to push this back until the 23rd, that might be a little bit more prudent, given the fact that we're going to have people who are working remotely now who will be taking holiday time, I'm sure. Just a point of order here for consideration.
I strongly agree.
Well, let's see.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go right ahead, Mr. Chiosa.
We have, as on the applicant's behalf, have no objections to continuing to the 23rd.
Fair enough. So I'll entertain a motion. Let me first withdraw my motion and make a new motion to continue this public hearing until Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Kyle?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Please, everyone who's here, mark your calendars. There will be no new letter. Okay, so you won't get a letter in the mail about this continued public hearing. So just mark your calendars. It'll be on our website, but there'll be no new letters going out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So at this point, we're going on to what was number 6. And as you may have remembered from an hour and 3/4 ago or so, this matter must be continued. Well, it is hand in hand with the field trip report. I believe it was number 2 that had to be continued because the taxes aren't current. But I'm going to read it anyway. I'm going to have to continue it. So that's going to be public hearing on DEP file 15-2743, NOI 2429 from Cynthia Kudo for permission to install a roof drain filtration system for the recently constructed garage and breezeway within bordering land subject to flooding and within the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland bank bordering on Lake Nokichoke. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, and 10.57, and Section 2 of the Dartmouth. The land is described as map 179, lot 9. It's otherwise known as 740 Reed Road. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved. Second.
Seconded motion. Roll call vote. Kyle?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. As we did with the number 2 field trip report, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing until Tuesday, July 9, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question before we vote on that?
Sure.
If Mr. Giosa could unmute himself, does he know what the status is of this tax issue? You know, we've discussed it a couple of times.
Yes,
Just-
again, for the record, Steve Giosa with SciTech Engineering and Environmental Consultants. I actually had emailed the client 2 weeks ago when this particular issue first came up. And while the meeting was going on earlier this evening, I sent a follow-up email to the client as well, reminding her that there are outstanding tax issues. I have not heard back from her on either emails, so I will follow up with a phone call tomorrow and see if we can get this resolved the next day or so.
Can you contact me when you find something out, just so I know?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to continue till July 7, 2024. Can I have at 7 p.m.? Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Kyle?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Very
We're
good.
not-
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now moving to the matter which was originally scheduled as public hearing number 4. And is somebody here for that? Before I get started reading it?
Good evening, Steve Schmiel is in attendance. Thank you.
So the public hearing is on DEP file 15-2739, NOI 4-27 from Eduardo Macaro, to restore the unauthorized encroachment of the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and to resume construction of a previously approved new home, including a garage, driveway, septic, and drainage system, grading and associated landscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regs here are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 2 of the Dartmouth bylaw. It's on land described as map 98, lot 23-5. It's otherwise known as 4 Stonebridge Lane. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second on that?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Kyle?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. And Steve, you're going to get the floor, but recognize Mr. Schmiel on behalf of the applicant. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for making some adjustments in the agenda schedule as well. So as noted, the applicant has essentially resubmitted a notice of intent application to resume construction of a single-family home project, which was previously submitted and approved under an order of conditions back in 2019. Unfortunately, even with the COVID extension, the applicant was not able to complete the construction activities on site, and therefore was required to resubmit the notice of intent application with some modifications. So under this NOI, the scope items we are requesting review and approval are includes reconfirming the limits of the previously delineated and approved wetland boundaries. So this limit was refreshed by myself this fall. It is consistent with the original line submitted. I found no reason for any adjustments on site. Complete the remaining site activities that were initially authorized under the 2019 application, as well as some modifications to that plan related to earthwork. And then somewhat most importantly, I guess, restoration and protection of the 100-foot buffer zone locations subject to unauthorized site disturbances. So this is largely the 25-foot no activities on locations, which I will get into. Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I share my screen to walk you through this?
Absolutely.
let me know when that pops up for you.
We have a visual. I have a visual anyway.
Okay, yes. So I'm starting with an aerial just to provide some context as to the current site conditions. I think this tells a better story somewhat than the actual NOI plans themselves. So where we are in town, this is 4 Stonebridge Lane. We're at near the intersection of Smith Neck Road and Stonebridge Lane. The site is located here. Is a shared driveway access. As you can see, the majority of the property has been well underway with development. The house is fairly far along. There is a layout of the garage foundation and footings that has yet to be constructed. Clearly, lots of equipment and material storage on site. Lots of clearing is complete, rough grading is complete. There is an existing stormwater detention basin out front here, which discharges to a large boarding vegetated wetland, which is essentially this entire eastern section of the site, which wraps to the, I guess it'd be to the west and then trails off site. The majority of the site is within the 100-foot buffer zone, except for the locations out front where the septic system has been sited. So within the application, I guess an attempt at easing the review, I included this side-by-side figure comparison that shows the 2019 approved site plan with the 2024 site plan. Fundamentally, as you can see, these are very similar, if not exactly the same. As far as structural components that have been slightly modified, the wetland, the garage is, I think, 3 feet in total closer to the wetland boundary than previously permitted. The remaining features are in the same location. The biggest difference you will notice is along this eastern perimeter, there's a significant amount of grading shown here within the 25-foot, which was previously avoided under the original application. We'll zoom in a bit so you can see, but the original proposal included, in this approved design, rather, included the installation of the concrete retaining wall, which started in the front of the property and extended all the way about 2/3 back. This facilitated the fill needed along this driveway to gain access to the proposed garage in the back. Unfortunately, it wasn't until the grading stage of the project did the applicant, I guess, realize that this was going to result in some site concerns, some safety concerns. He does have young children, and not shown here too clearly, but this grade change would result in about an 8-foot drop down to a stone wall. At that point, not sure what year, he elected to modify that design, not install the retaining wall system, and manage this side of the property with a graded slope down to the 25-foot no disturbance, beyond that 25-foot no disturbance, and just, I guess, would be west of the wetland boundary. So this site plan is a bit of a hybrid, a little bit confusing to see, but the light gray line locations are showing the existing grades on site. The dark black locations are areas where the slope will have to be regraded as it exceeds the allowable ratio, which has to be a minimum of 2:1. So just to add some additional context to the locations we're looking at, here's garage that is located in the back of the property. So this is that slope location facing south. You can see this is back in February. There's somewhat newly established lawn coming in. There's remnants of a retaining wall system along the base, but clearly not the original retaining wall system that was proposed. And then you'll notice this large open cleared grubbed area in between the bottom of the slope and the wetland boundary, which is in this vicinity here. Presumably this was impacted to facilitate, equipment movement and traffic when the slope was constructed. Here's another view of that slope location facing north. The home is situated right about here. You can see it doesn't show overly well, but this is about an 8-foot drop from the base of this slope to the top up here. Some stone features put on the bottom, sort of a makeshift retaining wall system, but not part of the plan. Also some erosional features happening here as well. So this clearing within this 25-foot essentially continued all the way around the bottom of the slope. These two photos I'll scroll back to in a minute here as they pertain to the mitigation and restoration proposed on site. So sorry here. Mitigation. Clearly, there's been some impact within that 25-foot. So to account for this change in site grading methodology, the modification from the retaining wall system to this graded slope, the applicant has proposed the following mitigation. This entire area out here, you can see the circular icons all represent proposed trees and shrubs. Approximately 125 of them would be installed from the edge of the driveway within that area that I showed as cleared, slightly upslope of the final grades, extending all the way around the back of the property within this open area, and then terminating at the property limit. This location is essentially kind of the dumping ground. Currently, there's a number of spoil piles in this vicinity. There's a lot of invasive species here, multiflora, rose, a lot of wine, raspberry, I believe, the rubus, and some others. It's barren and really just limited to fill piles from the previous excavations. This is obviously the existing home. You can see the multiflora and wineberry fill piles in here, and then there's some barren locations in between that. So these locations would all be, I guess, newly identified as areas of enhancement, not part of the, the 25-foot encroachment. So here again, showing the 25-foot no activity zone, that would be additional areas proposed out here. Once the slope is graded to its final slope ratios, the applicant's proposing an erosion control mix along the entire slope. So that'd be all of this area hatched in green. In addition to that, we're proposing the installation of 280 native herbaceous plugs, which would be evenly distributed along this slope to further add some protection and revegetation. And then the last component, to hopefully avoid any future encroachment and enforcement issues on site, would be the installation of a split rail fence. This would happen just outside the limit of restoration / enhancement, starting at the property line, continuing along the entire back of the property, continuing to the top of the slope, and then all the way out to the front of the lot where the existing driveway is currently. And on that fence, there would be also proposed wetland protection signage placed approximately every 30 feet along the entire perimeter of the site. So with that, I'll pause for any questions, kind of ran through that quickly. I will note, so this is sheet 2. The first sheet that is part of the application process largely just depicts the engineering design. So the remaining components, there's some very little exterior work needs to be completed. It's mostly interior. The entirety of the garage needs to be built, except for the foundation, the concrete work. Still tons of grading, final grading to do on site. Multiple groundwater infiltration systems were proposed. They have yet to be installed. The septic system and the driveway itself. I will note one comment that was passed along to me from Mark was an observation from DPW that this stormwater detention basin had been subject to some siltation. That I believe has been corrected. I have not been on site yet to review that, but the applicant did remove any siltation, any loose soil that was noted within that limit. There is an erosion control boundary along the top of slope that has been installed to prevent that. But I do see that as a reoccurring situation until, restoration, final restoration is implemented. As you can see, there's quite a bit of exposed soil here. This is somewhat the tipping point. Everything on the property from this point on drains to the front. So this detention basin is receiving a lot more discharge probably than what it was designed to do. So again, I'll pause for questions. I have a lot of information pretty quickly here.
What's the date of the plan, Steve?
This plan, the previously approved or the current plan?
Current plan.
In my,
April 19th is the current plan. And the previous plan was February 2019, I think, the first plan.
thank you. I can't see that section of the screen.
The first plan, the original plan, Mike, was February 8th, 2019. The revised plans, that sheet 1 of 2 and sheet 2 of 2 are dated April 19th, 2024.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Mark, you've had a chance to review this application. What are your comments and observations?
Well, I think that, you know, the applicant took some liberties. He probably needed an amended order of conditions to do the work that Steve showed in the photographs in the buffer zone, and to change, you know, from a vertical retaining wall to a sloped hillside. He didn't do that, and the order of conditions expired. We issued a COC on December 20th of 2023 just to get this improvement plan in position. So that first plan, the February 8th plan, has been closed out. Moving forward to the plans, the new plans, and we can you zoom out a little bit, Steve, on this one, just so we can get a broader picture? I think that, you know, Steve and I have spent some time on site together looking at this, and I think that this is a very reasonable plan to get us back to a place where I think we are meeting our responsibilities under both the act and the bylaw relative to buffer zone and performance standards. I think that the grass slope with the selective herbaceous plugs is a good idea. I think it'd be very difficult to get woody vegetation up there, but we do have ample amounts of woody vegetation down in that lower buffer zone, which I think is a very good idea. In response to Steve's comment about that retention pond or detention pond, which is basically in the lower right as we're looking at it right now. Yes, in fact, they did clean up, they did fix the slopes, and they did put in new erosion and control devices. However, this site has been unstable for a long time. There is a drainage rut that runs down the proposed paved driveway to the that passes underneath the house to the existing garage to the rear. It is rutted, and when we get heavy rains, you can see that it's flowing. The detention basin that I was referring to earlier, this detention basin has been really ignored for a long time. The detention basin was built, I believe, in 2014. So it is a detention basin and it is not a wetland, even though it's vegetated with a lot of wetland vegetation. It was designed under the new stormwater regs with BMPs and the like. My question is, given the unstable nature of this site and the abutting site that would be above this, a site that has been sort of under construction for a while, and the driveway, as you see, comes in to the left. You're going too fast for me, Steve. Okay.
Sorry, how's that?
You see the Locust House, the house immediately to the left on this picture. That site has been relatively unstable for a while, although it seems somewhat stable now. But these two sites have been discharging sediment down the driveways, down the hill into that detention basin. And I think that that detention basin has to be evaluated to see if it is in fact functional. We've been there at times when that detention basin is literally filled to the brim and practically on the driveway, flooding. I will say that it is somewhat functional in that when I went back last week, given the fact that we have been free of some deluge rain, there was still water in it, but it had receded to a reasonable depth. But I don't know if discharge pipe, and Steve, you show it on one of your sketches, if you could scroll up.
Close your eyes. Don't get sick.
Yeah, that one's good enough. Scroll over a little bit.
Sorry, I'm on a very, very small laptop here. Remote.
Okay.
Try. Here we go.
Now zoom out a little bit. Yeah, okay, so you can see a pipe discharging near A15 and A16. Okay, I don't know if that pipe is silted in. I don't know what the situation is with that. This detention basin sits on the applicant's property. I don't believe that there's a homeowners association out there, and if there is, it's non-functional. And I believe that considering that this site and the other site has contributed to siltation of that basin, that both parties should be responsible to evaluate whether that is in fact functional and should get a maintenance plan, because they're ultimately responsible for that detention basin. It's on their property. If it floods, it's their problem. Nobody's going to come in there and clean it out for them. So they need to be on top of this. That's just the ramifications of this site and the other site. So I've said a fair amount here. My recommendation to the commission is I'm recommending to issue a standard order of conditions with certain modifications per the plans dated April 19th, 2024. And if the chairman will allow me to read those modifications, because I think they're important. The modifications begin again at special condition 41. And that modified condition reads, the applicant and potentially in conjunction with his abutting neighbor or their successors or assigns need to conduct an engineering evaluation of the detention basin that exists to the north of the existing homes on map 98 lots 23-4 and 23-5 to determine the current hydraulic functionality and further to develop a maintenance plan for the neighbors or their successors or assigns to maintain the proper design functionality of the basin. Condition 42, where the project site areas are designated for resource replacement, replication, or restoration, whether by approved project impact violation or result of an enforcement order, all work shall conform to the following protocols. A, all existing soil shall be stabilized or shall be secured with properly staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence, and regraded to natural contours prior to any plantings. All unstable bare ground shall be seeded with a standard wetland or erosion control seed mix as per the conditions at the planted recommended density. B, aside from the restoration work authorized under this order, no additional work activities of any type shall occur within the 25-foot of the delineated wetland line of record established under this order, unless authorized in the future by the commission or an agent. C, all planting and restoration work will be completed by October 16th, 2024. And upon completion, a conservation agent shall be notified so that an inspection of said work can be made prior to the close of the growing season. D, when using seed mixes of any type or source, the Conservation Commission shall require all sowing of seed to be at the specified density and aerial coverage. E, the Conservation Commission shall require the minimum woody specifications to include all individual tree species as proposed with trunk DBH of no less than 1 inch, if applicable, and all shrub sizes of no less than 3 to 5 gallon pots or balls as proposed, if applicable, as opposed to any size specification presented on the plan of record. F, monitoring shall be done and reported to conservation staff following each growing season until 75% wetland vegetative cover has been achieved or throughout the complete term of this order. All plantings that fail to survive through the first growing season for any reason shall be replaced by the applicant or their successors or assigns. So those are my modified conditions as per the plans dated April 19th, 2024.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any question? I'm just gonna make a statement. I am very troubled by the fact that applicant unilaterally decided to disregard the plans that were approved in 2019. This clearly wasn't a situation where they weren't aware of the fact that the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Dartmouth bylaws were applicable to the changes. We didn't write them a blank check, and I want to be damn sure they understand we're not getting a blank check here, okay? I'm very troubled by that. That's a total disregard of the laws and rules within this town and the state. And it's unfathomable to me. I would like to know who the contractors were that were doing this. That they couldn't read a plan makes no sense at all. Their licenses should be pulled. I'm very troubled by this.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond, and Steve, you can correct me, but I believe that the owner is the contractor. So it was his decision. That's just to answer your question. That's not a justification statement. And the second piece to this is this notice of intent filing was in fact an after the fact notice of intent filing requiring the extra fee of $1,000 as penalty. So we did what we could within the guise of our bylaw and regulations and the act and its regulations. I understand your frustration. I'm frustrated too, but that's kind of where we stand.
Yeah, because I mean, Mark, honestly, I've seen people come in with these issues, but it's a small, but this is not a small.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And I think Steve would acknowledge that I expressed the very same frustration months ago when we first met out there.
And I understand that. I just want to be clear on the record that, it's unbelievable to me that a licensed contractor would do this. It's unbelievable to me. And to me, it throws into question whether they're entitled and should have a license. Okay? Because to me, that means that they will decide, despite what they're required to do under law, to take matters into their own hands. That's a very dangerous position to take. And clearly one that I would have a trouble hiring a contractor who would do that. And I realize in this case, it happens to be the owner, which makes it almost worse. But anyway, I mean, that being said, I understand I wanted to vent on it because my goodness, if everyone acted like that, we'd have anarchy here. And I don't care, to me, who the person is. They're not entitled to just willy-nilly violate the law as they see fit, as if there are no laws or rules.
Understood.
It doesn't sit well with me.
No, Mark, you are correct. The applicant is the contractor. I've had some pretty lengthy conversations with Ed about compliance. For whatever reason, it didn't sink in the first time, but he gets it. He understands this is not an option, it's a requirement. He needs to engage his consultant and his engineer for every step along the way until he's back in compliance. And he is committed to that. This was a very expensive mistake on his part. I mean, he's paid a lot more for the same product he was authorized to build in 2019. A lot more, and he's lost a lot of time. He's got a big, beautiful house here that doesn't have any electricity or utilities. So he's committed to having us on board and walking him through the rest of this process so we don't end up in another situation like this. And I have confidence in him that we will ride this out and come in with a request for a certificate of compliance that's consistent with what's been shown here tonight.
Well, Steve, I have to tell you, I have confidence in what you've done in the past and what you're doing here, and I have very high confidence in what Mark's recommendations are and his careful attention to detail. And I know his concerns parallel mine in terms of why these rules and regulations are in place. So, I think things should be fine going forward, but I just want to express my frustration and somewhat amazement that this even happened. So, I'm certainly my venting was not to say I don't believe what you said. I absolutely do, and I think in the past you've shown yourself to be one of those individuals who, when they come before us, has carefully thought through the problem and presented a solution which makes sense. So it was not an indictment on you. Okay.
Understood. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyway. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? I can't see anybody in the audience because the screen sharing, so I can't tell.
Hello?
Yep.
Yes, hi. I'm in the audience, I guess. And my name is Dimitri Limbarakis, and we own the house at 621 Smith Neck Road that abuts the Stonebridge Lane Road, 2 ponds, and the 2 houses behind us.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
Okay, and I came to town hall here because I just found out about this meeting Friday afternoon, and I came to the town hall, and it's a Zoom meeting, so that somebody was there to help me do this. So I'm very unprepared. But my concerns are the water issues and the wetlands and all that, because in 2014, when the holding ponds were put into place, Roland Valois put in, because he didn't have enough setback from our land to his land to put a road in, he had to move the wetlands and put the road in further on the other side of the holding ponds, the retention ponds, the big one and the small one. And originally, the big one and small retention ponds were connected with a pipe to regulate and monitor the 2 levels so they could regulate themselves. And then, because Roland didn't have enough land to sell the house directly behind us, the one that's in question of the house that's been built for many years, that's in question of the unstable land or whatever you're referring to, because he needed more acreage to put a house there. There was a town meeting I came to that that Environmental Protection Agency got involved with, where they capped and plugged the tube that regulates the 2 ponds. So originally the set plan was that the 2 holding ponds, the one in question on this gentleman, Eduardo's land, and that big one, fed back and forth, but then got capped because of land restriction in acreage or something to that effect. And I think that's a lot of some of the problem. My problem is that my land now is in the bottom of the soup bowl, because the house in question behind us, the brick home there, and Eduardo's house, and now Kevin Wachowski's house next door that got built last year, all the lands have been graded up about 8 to 10 feet higher than our land is now. And we are in the fishbowl, and we now have standing water in our end of our driveway next to our house that's constantly standing there. And I really believe it's a lot of the runoff from all the three properties that are now taller than us. The other thing is, it was COVID. Our prime residence is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We've owned this home since 81 or 82. It's more of a summer home, so we're not here a lot. And during the whole COVID thing, that's when that house got built. And I've tried to reach town hall, but it was closed because of COVID, and I couldn't reach anybody. Never got a butters meeting to any kind of anything because it was COVID. And that land there that Eduardo has was at street level grade before he brought in what the neighbor told me about 300 trailer dump trucks of dirt to build it up that 9 or 12 feet that the house is now sitting on. And the question where the garage is used to have a pond there that the neighbors told me, the Wachowski neighbors told me that they used to, back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, shovel the pond off to ice skate for the neighborhood. And that pond is no longer there, and I believe it got filled in. So I think that's a lot of the water issues also. And so I don't know who to speak to or who to get in touch with to figure this out, but since the new houses and the holding ponds, especially the new houses, we're just having water problems galore. Just the yard is saturated at times, the whole driveway out to the street. So that's my concern, is since you're having some water issues and that little retention pond needs to be regulated, and his leaching field is going to be on his driveway heading towards my land. Is that going to further inundate my land with more water? Because the groundwater has come up in the last 3 or 4 years since it has ever been.
Well, you're raising some very interesting questions relative to the development out there. And I don't just mean this particular applicant's. And I don't know, I haven't heard anything that would speak to why you're having significant water problems. But it would seem that if the designed detention areas aren't functioning the way they were designed, that could have some impact on it. I don't know if,
Yeah,
it could be more than just the applicant's property too. I mean, it sounds like, your water problem has been exacerbated by other homes in addition to this one.
Yes, it's not only his home, but I believe that the original plan of those 2 detention ponds were to have the pipe in between that run under the driveway of that other house that go to that smaller pond, so they could regulate the wetlands and the water. And I've noticed that pond, the big one, is
in 700 feet.
What was that? Excuse me?
No, I think there was somebody has a navigation
Okay.
assistant.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so some of my concern is that, because all the homes are raised up, when it heavy rains, all the water obviously runs down the front of the grass into our land, and you can't do much about that. And I'm not complaining that much about that. I am, but I'm not. But I believe that a lot of the water problems in the last 4 or 5 years have really from all the new homes around us. So I just don't want to find out that when he starts living there, that his septic system is now even further inundating our land with more moisture, because the leach field is filling our yard also, is my concern, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer your question because
Yeah. We're not getting, obviously we're not getting any of these meetings or butter meetings from anything. My sister, who lives in San Francisco, got this butters meeting for this one particular thing, but we've gotten nothing else. So when all this new laws pass and rulings pass for all these homes, we're not unaware of it. So I guess we don't have a leg to stand on at this point, but my concern to the water, I guess.
I can respond to a couple of things that Dimitri said.
Sure.
First of all, people within 100 feet of the property line should be notified. I don't know how far away you are. You sound like you're in a butter. So that may be an issue. I think you left me a message yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And I did return your call, but I got a voicemail and left one, so.
Okay, that might have been me because I found out about all this on Friday afternoon.
Try to respond to you and explain to you that it wasn't an in-person meeting at the town hall, that it was a Zoom meeting and the like, and I
Oh, I
told.
didn't hear that. Okay, I'm sorry.
So I did hear your message and I did respond. On the last issue, which I think is the most critical, I am sympathetic to your concern about drainage out there. That's why I'm recommending a condition to have those ponds evaluated for their hydraulic functionality and figure out a maintenance plan to make them work better. I am aware of issues out there, not specifically based on complaints, but based on observations where I've driven in there and seen that pond practically overtopping onto the road on a perfectly sunny day. So I have some questions as to the functionality. I know there was the connector pipe. I know that pipe was capped. I don't know if that was the right thing to do, the wrong thing. I think we're at a point now, we've had impacts to that one detention basin. I think we need to look at them and make sure they're working right. Obviously, we have two.
Would there be a way to find out if they could be uncapped at this point? So maybe it would regulate it better, or
I want to find out what the functionality is and if it's functioning to its design level. Okay.
Correct.
There was approval of those basins at one time by somebody, and they were approved because they functioned at a level of X, whatever X is, I don't know. And
correct.
to me, when I look at them, if what I'm seeing is X, that's a pretty bad X. I don't think they're functioning properly. So
Yeah, because
that's what we.
I can honestly say before they were capped, they were maybe a foot deep at any given time, even heavy rains, heavy winters with 3 feet of snow. They never really got up to the height they're at now. And I don't know if it's just because of climate change or what it is. And I'm not pointing fingers, but it is definitely a problem.
Yep, and I'm aware of that. And what I'm saying is, I would like, I've recommended that this be looked at as part of this revised package, because I understand that it is an observed problem on my part, regardless of what anybody else says.
Right.
I see a
Thank you.
potential. That's so.
Is there a way to be notified when people are either coming out to look at the properties or inspect this stuff, just to kind of chime in, or is that something that can't be done or not allowed?
There's no process for that because the people have to do their work. I mean, if an engineer is hired to do an evaluation, they are going to review the design plans. They're going to look at the existing conditions on the ground. They're going to make evaluations, and they're going to say whether something's working or not.
Okay.
You can't. It's not helpful for back and forth discussions while they're trying to collect the data they need to collect.
All right. As far as that, I don't know what you have for maps in town hall, but does it show where that new construction of Eduardo's is, where that pond used to be that the kids used to ice skate on in the winter, and it was all overgrown back in the day, but
I can go back and look at historical aerial photos, which
Yeah.
date to 1938. We, I don't have that information at my fingertips right now.
No, I realize that, but is there a way to kind of look and kind of as the process? Because from what the neighbor told me where Kevin is, his grandfather, who was a Dartmouth postal worker, I guess, until he passed, and he told me that the whole neighborhood used to shovel a path out to that and go clean it off, and that the town or the state or somebody used to go into the woods somehow and spray it until it got illegal to spray whatever chemicals into ponds to keep the mosquito population down. So that was a decent sized pond from what I understand back in the day. That's no longer there, I guess.
We can look into it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. At this point, who do I speak to or follow up with this in the future, because we do live in Cambridge. We're not always at the house. We are today and tomorrow, but so we're not always around when people are around. If someone knocks on a door or something, who do I try to follow up with?
Mark, if it's,
You can contact our office. The phone number is 508-910-1822.
Hold on a minute. I'm in the parking lot of the town hall, trying to,
It's okay.
nothing to write on. All right, what department would that be? I'll have to
That
look
was-
it up.
We also have a website too, Mark. And
Okay,
if you go on to Dartmouth
Yeah, I can get contact information.
Conservation Commission, you'll see our contact information. But
Okay.
if you're not getting notices of public hearings, I would suggest you might want to stroll into the town tax collector's office or the assessor's office,
okay,
or perhaps the assessors, and make sure that your mailing address is correct, because
okay,
every applicant who goes before conservation, zoning, planning, etc., they have to notify the abutters by certified mail, and they get that information from the assessor's office. They certify the abutters list. So your address may be incorrect there, is what I'm saying.
okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. I just want to try to address some of this and see what the outcome is and where we stand and all that and what could happen down the pike, before it happens.
No, I listen, appreciate that. And I think as you heard Mr. Garrett speak, he too has observed some drainage concerns out on that site, which affects you and everyone else. So,
Right.
we don't know how it happened, but we're gonna see if we can find a solution.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that a lot of it is nature and you can't do much of that, but I mean, yeah, the new homes and having, pipes under their foundations leading into our land now. The neighbor next door has a pipe that comes out that he's unaware of that leads his groundwater into our yard now. It's, 20 feet from my property line or 10 feet from the property line, but that's added water. And so if they're all doing that, we're the fishbowl. So that's the problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
and I just wanted to mention, I'd be happy to coordinate an on-site meeting either prior to engaging an engineer to start this review, during, or even after. Ed is certainly not looking to hide anything or make things worse for his neighbors. So if
Yeah,
there's some-
I'd appreciate that if you could get in touch with me. I can give you a phone number or something to call if I don't mind putting it out there.
I'll
Or is it
coordinate
on
that.
here?
No, it's not, but I can coordinate that through Mark Garrett.
Okay. If I think he still has the number.
It's on a sticky pad on my desk.
Okay,
we go.
okay. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Just
No
let me
problem.
know a little notice and I can come up from Cambridge. It's only about an hour and a half drive.
Sure.
Or 2 hours with traffic, and I can meet with you pretty much anytime.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve, for that offer.
No problem.
So, anyone else who wants to be heard? I don't see any.
Tom
So,
Hardman might have his hand up. I don't know.
who did?
I see a hand next to Tom Hardman's name, but he's muted. I don't know what that is.
I don't see it.
Okay, I see a hand on mine.
Yeah, I don't see
Are you
one.
there? Guess not.
Okay, so at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll have a roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. At this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions based on the plan submitted dated April 19, 2024, with our standard conditions through number 40, and then to have special conditions 41, 42, A through G, as read into the record by Mr. Garrett earlier this evening.
Oh,
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Nat.
Yes.
My vote is yes, that motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all.
That concludes the public hearing portion of the meeting. We do have some items for discussion, but the hour is quite late. We've already been at this for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yep.
Um,
I'll make them short.
Alrighty.
First discussion item is this is Joe and Jim's last meeting, from what I understand. Thank you much for your service to the commission and, good luck in future endeavors.
Thank you.
You guys.
Than I do.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve with all of you, and so I appreciate the experience.
Yeah, well, we're gonna miss both of you guys. Your contributions have been valuable, and gonna miss those smiley faces,
Well, I'd just like to say it's been a privilege to serve on the Conservation Commission, and I admire the goals and all the accomplishments. And it's an honor to be associated with such fine people. And all the people that are present and those who have come before, Mike Keel for his leadership and guidance, and Mark Garrett for his knowledge and hard work, and Michael O'Reilly before him. It's been a pleasure, and I still will be interested in all your goals and accomplishments. And many times you work hard and you feel nobody notices, but I really notice and appreciate all the hard work everyone does. And the reason for not renewing is for family issues that I won't bore you with, and more demands are being put on me, and I just have to try to streamline all the things that I do outside the family. But wish you all well, and thank you for your friendship, and thank everyone for guidance, and I've learned a lot.
Good luck, Joe. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Jim. Good luck.
Joe. Thank you.
Okay, with that pause, I'm moving on. I sent a resume out to your attention. We received an interested party for one of these vacancies, Megan Morrison. With the fiscal year changing, as I said, this is Joe and Jim's last meeting. So the July 9th meeting, we're going to be down to 5 members. So, that's certainly a quorum issue. Megan, if, appointed, if recommended and appointed would help to fill, one of those voids. We need to decide, after having read her resume, and I looked at it, she's an architect. It seems that she has an understanding of plan reading and the technical aspects, which I think would be a very strong suit for the commission. I would entertain a motion to authorize the commission to do an interview and then make a recommendation to the select board. I know they're looking to appoint, I think, they want to do appointments in early July. I don't know what date, and if we could get our recommendation to them, they might be able to get her, in, I think July 9th would be tough, but certainly for the 23rd. So, my first question is, are we interested in, interviewing her? And then the second question is, who wants to interview? Typically, it's the chair, myself, and any other commissioner who wants to be a part of that. So who wants to, and when do we do it?
Well, I know I did read the resume.
I
that
couldn't hear you.
I said, I know I want to be part of it, so, but this week is gonna be virtually impossible, because I've got 2 more days of grand jury before they finally release me from my sentence. And I just impossible this week.
Can we do something next week? I mean, I know it's a 3-day week.
Yeah, we could, I just can't do anything this week. I'm available next week.
Is anybody else interested and available in doing something next week?
Yeah, I'm free on the 5th, Mark and Mike. After the 4th, we could do it if we can do it then. I'm not free at all before that.
I'm not in town on the 5th, so.
I mean, I'm happy to be around. I'm just pretty green in the whole process, so it'd probably be better for somebody with a little bit more knowledge to execute that.
I'll be around next week. If we could just pinpoint a date, a couple dates, I can make it work.
How's Tuesday look for you?
Tuesday's perfect.
What, morning or afternoon?
Anytime after 9 a.m. is good.
Well, same on my side. So, Mark, if you want to see when she's available, Tuesday sounds like a good day.
Okay, so that's Tuesday, July 2nd. Yeah, I'm at the office all day, so I will suggest to her, but we have a committee available for Tuesday. And you, Kyle, you said after 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Mark, just keep me posted on the timing of it. I'll let you guys pick the date and time that works best for you, but if I can join, I'll join.
Perfect. We're gonna do by Zoom anyway, right?
It'll be in person though, probably, right?
You'll be in person? Okay, I don't care.
I don't care. I mean,
I just didn't know. Let me know the method. I mean, if she wants to come into town hall, I'll meet at town hall.
and I will ask her in person or Zoom. Okay, I will do
Yeah.
that. That's Tuesday, 7/2. Okay,
Very good.
got a plan on that. The last thing, I won't spend a lot of time with it. I got Mike's comments. I have imported them into the draft. I have taken my comments and handled those. I got Liz's comments, Richard's comments. Nat, you said you were gonna comment. I haven't seen anything yet.
Oh, really? I thought I sent it to you. I know I drafted it up, but I'll resend it, I guess then.
Okay, do that, and what I will do is I will get that amalgam together and get it out to everybody for one last read through and discussion. I don't sense there's gonna be a lot of edits on that copy, but we'll move forward on it, okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds good.
And the only last thing was enforcement issues. I sent out the spreadsheet for review and comment. I also sent you a follow-up email with some of the current cases, which we foresee some closure in the short term and some dates, on some really new ones that need to be closed out. So, that's where we stand. If you look at the spreadsheet, I color-coded it so that the blacks are the ones that we still have open, and the closure is not certain. The reds have been closed and the greens are those that are close to closure. So if you look at the greens and the reds, we out of the 70 to 80 cases that are on that spreadsheet, we've knocked out certainly more than 75% of them. And some of them are just really old and everybody's forgotten about.
Yeah, I took a look at it, Mark. I thought it looked good. My only thought is, and particularly for the ones in black that are dated, as long as we're just clear on what we can do and when, like, is there a trigger point in any of them? And I'm sure you know, but I don't necessarily need to, but I just think we should be.
A lot of those are out
mindful.
of our hands. Like there's the Lemieux case. That's been forever and it's a town council case. Now Mike suggested if it's in town council's hands, then it's resolved.
Yeah.
Standpoint. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't until town council calls me and says, oh, by the way, where do we stand on this? And then we're back involved. So I tend not to want to take those off. We are trying to make a case townwide because of the increase in enforcement cases across the board, not just wetlands. You know, it's expensive to go after people, but you know, you have rules, you can't ignore them. And if you do ignore them, then you're opening Pandora's box. And we've got some, we've got some cases in front of us, multidisciplinary, multi-departmental, that everybody's like looking around.
Mark,
Right,
it will become even more expensive, Mark, if we don't do it.
I agree, and it's expensive because we haven't done it. And it's gonna get more expensive if we don't do it. But a lot of these decisions are not, they're in the town administration's hands. You know, what do you want to do?
Right. And I think as long as that's known and somewhat documented that that's what needs to happen to progress it, that's fine. Like I know some of them, like 801 we talked and the trigger point for us would be if there was a sale or a change of ownership. And I think that's fine as long as we know that. I just get worried about one sitting out there and no one knows.
Yeah, but the problem with 801 is he just flat out ignores everybody. He's ignored town council, he's ignored us. So short of sending the police out and putting them in cuffs, I don't know what else there is to do. And I don't know that the town is willing to do that at a grander level.
Yeah, I get it. But I guess as long as we've got comfort that we've exhausted all options that CONSCOM can take, then I think that's fine.
So that's all I got, folks.
I have nothing new, so with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Good motion, roll call vote. Kyle,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
I think Jim's already left. Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that motion passes unanimously. Joe, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you,
It's been a
Joe. Hope to
pleasure.
see you around.
Thank you. Hope so.
See you around.
Everybody.
See you around, Joe.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
fourth,
you.
have a good fourth.